What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Time for my Week 3 predictions. Again, taking 10 of the biggest games of the week. And last week was not a great week. I went 7-3, but really kicking myself because I changed 2 of my preseason predictions. I picked Cal to upset Auburn, although that was very easily could have happened. And then I changed my pick from Texas to Alabama. Both of those games I would have been right in the preseason, but I overreacted to the first week, and hopefully we will not overreact again. And then also missed Miami and Texas A&M, but that was a game I said could really go either way. I was surprised that Miami pulled away and won as easily as they did in the second half, but those would be the 3 games that I missed from last week. Let's get to Week 3 now. We'll start with Kansas State, Missouri. And I've already done a lot of these because I do all the SEC games over on the SEC channel, all the Big Ten games on the Big Ten channel. So if you want to see all the games from those conferences, go ahead and head to those channels. And if you go to the Big Ten channel, help us out and subscribe. But yeah, I talked about this game, noon Eastern time on the SEC network. Kansas State favored by 5.5. Preseason, I picked Missouri here. And maybe I'm going to make the same mistake that I made last week, but I just really have been impressed with Kansas State. Beat a decent Troy team, and they just absolutely dominated in that game. And Missouri has not looked great through the first 2 weeks, so I just feel like Kansas State, even in the preseason, I thought Kansas State was a better team. I just felt like this was one of those spots where we might see an upset. But I'm changing my pick to Kansas State. 34-24 the final score, going with the Wildcats here in this one. Next, we've got LSU, Mississippi State, noon Eastern time. And again, you wonder, how does LSU come back? Their first big game after that loss to Florida State. They're 9.5-point favorites here. I think they could start off slow. It's a noon kick on the road. The cowbells will be going, obviously. So I could see Mississippi State getting the lead early, LSU falling behind. But I think Jaden Daniels will bring them back, and they, at the end of the day, will win this game. 37-29. Pretty close, but I'm going with the Tigers to get the win here. Tennessee, Florida at 7 o'clock Eastern time. This one's on ESPN. Tennessee favored by 6.5. And again, this is one of those, if you look at last week, just look at last week, Tennessee struggled with Austin Peay. Florida dominated against McNeese, 2 FCS opponents. And you could say, well, Florida, maybe they should win. They will win this game. They're playing at home. But I go back to week 1 and look at Tennessee against Virginia. I think that's the Tennessee team that will show up in this game. Florida will be competitive. They're playing at home. But at the end of the day, I just think Tennessee is the better team. And I'm going to go with the Vols even on the road to win this one. 34-20, my prediction. All right, next up, we've got Penn State, Illinois, noon Eastern time on Fox. Penn State favored by 14.5 points. I just worry about Illinois' defense. They've had some really good ones in the past, but through the first couple of games, they haven't looked great on that side of the ball. This is kind of similar to Mississippi State LSU, noon kick on the road for Penn State. Perhaps a slow start, but I just think they are a much, much better team. I think they will take care of business. They pulled away in the second half, 34-17, the final score in this one. Next, we've got BYU at Arkansas, 7:30 Eastern time on ESPN2. Arkansas favored by 7.5. Razorbacks have been a little inconsistent so far, but they haven't played any great opponents. BYU has not looked great at all, really. And I just think Arkansas will put it together. They'll play better in this game at home. Big game. They'll be ready to go. I think they win by a couple of scores. 31-16 is my prediction in this one. Next, we've got Minnesota at North Carolina, 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN. North Carolina favored by 7.5 points. Minnesota's defense, I think, will keep them in this game. They've looked really good on that side of the ball in the first couple of games. North Carolina, we'll see how do they bounce back after the close win over App State. I say bounce back, they did win. But which North Carolina team is going to show up? The team from last week or the team that beat South Carolina? It's hard to say, but home field advantage is going to be the difference for me in this one. I think North Carolina wins a close one. I think Minnesota's defense will keep this one close. 24-19 the final score. Going with the Tar Heels. Next up, we've got Georgia Tech at Ole Miss, 7:30 Eastern time on the SEC network. Ole Miss missing some weapons, or at least banged up on the offensive side of the ball. Georgia Tech is, I think, better than people give them credit for. They had a chance to beat Louisville in the opener, and they're playing on the road here. Ole Miss, I think this is kind of a similar game to that Tulane game last week. Maybe they don't fall behind, but I don't think they blow Georgia Tech out. I think this game's a little closer than you might think. 38-27 the final. I'm going with the Rebels, though. They are the better team. And then we got TCU Houston, 8 o'clock Eastern time. TCU favored by 7.5. playing on the road. Houston just, they're coming off of a tough loss. TCU still probably remembering that first game against Colorado where their defense played really poorly. I think two offenses that can score points will go at it here. Pretty high scoring game. I think TCU wins it by 10 though. 38-28 is my prediction. Syracuse at Purdue, 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. Syracuse favored by 2.5. And again, if you go by the first 2 weeks, you'd probably pick Syracuse. They've looked really good, even though they haven't played great competition. Purdue barely beating Virginia Tech, but still, I thought that was a pretty good win for them last week, and I think they built some confidence playing at home. Going by all of my offseason research and everything, I just did not believe Syracuse was going to be great coming into the season. I think they've really just benefited from an easy schedule. I think Purdue, already battle-tested, they find a way to win a close game, 28-27, the final score in this one. And then we got Pittsburgh, West Virginia, 7:30 Eastern time. West Virginia favored by 1 point, and this may have changed since I did this graphic, but the Mountaineers, you go back to week 1 against Penn State. Was Penn State that good, or is West Virginia going to be bad this year? It's hard to say. Pittsburgh's coming off of a loss to Cincinnati. This is one that I think really it's a toss-up, could go either way. Lower scoring game. Both teams are going to want to run the football. I believe I picked West Virginia in the preseason, and they're at home. I think home field advantage makes the difference. They win a close game, 27-23. So those are my predictions for week 3. Give me your score predictions down in the comments below.